The engine is still
What's for launch? GC? Go. Guidance? Go. Fido? Go. Prop? Go. GNC? Go. Max? Go. Eagle? Go. Ecom?
Go pending final steps. The cabin link check.
3, 2, 1.
Is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us? Can you give us a sign?
Welcome to the Riff Nation Network, the RNN, putting a slide in your glide and a dip in your hip. Welcome to the mothership, the home of the travelers of the universe. With shows throughout the week, you can find us at Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Everything you could want, everything you can need right here, right now. From the paranormal to the supernatural. From comedy to the spiritual. And now, your featured show. Shall we begin?
It's showtime, folks!
Podcast may contain material that some listeners may find sensitive, offensive, or disturbing. We strive to create respectful and informative content, but topics discussed may include mature themes such as violence, explicit language, or controversial subjects, triggering content including discussions related to mental health, trauma, or other sensitive issues, explicit language. Occasionally, our guests or hosts may use strong language. While we aim to handle these topics with care and empathy, we encourage listeners to exercise discretion. If you find any content distressing, consider skipping or seeking support. Remember that this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you need assistance, please consult a qualified expert.
Welcome to the Forgotten Library, where the books whisper, the shadows listen, and the stories refuse to stay quietly on the shelf. I'm your host, Christina Spencer. And each month, we explore one novel together. With 3 one-hour live episodes of immersive, read-aloud chapters. Followed by a live interview with the author who brought the story to life. So find your favorite comfy chair, a soft blanket, and a hot beverage. Light a candle if the darkness scares you. And settle in for story time. Welcome to this week's live episode of Horror, History, and Hauntings Library. Hi guys, welcome again to another episode of the Horror, History, and Hauntings Library Podcast, where in the Friday evenings we take it a bit slower, we wear our comfy pajamas, and we certainly have our favorite beverage at the ready. Mine today is iced coffee. Tell me in the comments what is yours tonight. And if I haven't said already, my name is Christina, and tonight we return to Vine, Alabama. But before we do so, I just want to put out the request. A lot of you already know I help with a nonprofit organization called the Green Eggs Foundation. It's named after my nephew, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago now, leaving behind his wife and young son. His wife, as a memorial to him, has dedicated the Green Eggs Foundation as a place where children can um, go and learn about the arts and passion and learn about band management and marketing and painting if that's what they're into, or podcasting, or whatever their art of choice is. It's a community nonprofit to get music and arts in the hands of kids again, since especially since they're being taken out of the schools. So if you would like, I've had a number of my friends step forward and donate things for a auction, or we're talking about doing it as a raffle where it'll be eggs. People pay $5 for an egg, and you may get a thank you and a sticker, or you may get a big prize like, a signed book, or memorabilia from a horror movie, or, something like that. So if you're interested in donating, please contact me by message and I will direct you. They also have a wish list for things and activities for the Fright Night for the kids to do, because they're doing an additional kid Fright Night along with the adult Fright Night with the bands. So they're looking for supplies for crafts for the kids to do that night. So that being said, just contact me directly on Facebook. Give me a message and I'll get the contact information to you. All right. I do appreciate you giving me the time for that. So back to the story. Now we return to Vine, Alabama. Last time something felt off. A quiet town, subtle changes, a feeling that something just wasn't quite right. But now there's no denying it anymore. People are disappearing. Law enforcement has already been called, and even they weren't safe. Because whatever is happening here, it's not just spreading, it's hunting. The cattle have already tasted blood, and now they want more. In a place where everything once felt safe, the familiar has turned into something else entirely. Something hungry, something watching, something waiting. So let's jump into the reading. We stopped on page 65, which is the beginning of chapter 9. Oh, we got to get our fire. Tell me if the fire is too loud. I did make a new video, so I hope you enjoy the new fire tonight. So I decided to go with a campfire, so just bear with me. Chapter 9. Jerry Simpson sang loudly and off key, along with the voices of Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, as Good Hearted Woman blasted from his radio. Jerry turned up his bottle of Coors Banquet to shake out the last couple of drops, and then he stumbled through the kitchen on the way to the refrigerator. Loving a good time and man, he shouted the lyrics out loudly at his wife Gertie as he slid closely against and past her backside while she was washing dishes. Gertie just grinned and shook her head, ignoring Jerry's drunken vocal accompaniments for the most part. Oh, hell's bells, Jerry exclaimed after opening the refrigerator and seeing that he had drank the last beer, and also knowing that it wasn't even 8 p.m. on a Friday night. He then stumbled over toward a pantry with decorative wooden doors covering 4 sets of cabinets. You can check, Jerry, but I think you're empty over there, Gertie called out from the sink. Better not be, Jerry slurred as he slung the cabinet doors open. Well, I'll be empty. Jerry made his way past the stovetop, taking a hot dog off the baking sheet as he did. He wiggled it at Gertie with a with a goofy grin and said, I'm going to have to call down there to Jack Winslow's and see what they got going on up there tonight. I can't abide with this thirst. From over the counter in between where Gertie and Jerry stood, the disc jockey came over the radio. His voice was solid, deep, and made for the radio, but a little bit of a southern drawl. All right, folks, that was two good old Texas boys there, and you heard it here on WTRT 88.6. Coming up next, we're going to take a Cadillac on over to Bakersfield and check on our good friend, Mr. Haggard. But first, cut that racket radio down for a minute. I've got to make a call, Jerry said to Gertie as he dragged himself over toward their rotary phone that was hanging on the wall near the hallway. Missing the first part of what the man on the radio was saying, Gertie raised her hand to try and get Jerry to quiet down as the broadcast continued. The herd is still at large and is believed to have killed a few people. They're talking about them daggum cows again, Jerry interrupted with annoyance. Hush, Gertie snapped. Please limit your travel as the story unfolds further. Local and state police are doing their best to locate the herd and... Don't hush me, woman. I said turn it down. I'm making a call. Don't make me tell you again. Jerry interrupted again, this time pointing a bony finger at Gertie and trying his best to look intimidating, though the small, thin man came across more as a caricature of Yosemite Sam. A hatless Yosemite Sam that was brandishing a lone hot dog with a tip chewed off of it. Can't you see my damn hands are soaked, Jerry? Gertie snapped back. Probably best I cut it off anyway. You probably get yourself electrocuted or something. Jerry mumbled as he went to cut off the radio as Merle Haggard soulfully began singing Silver Wings. Jerry stomped back over towards the phone, taking a bite out of the bare hot dog as he did. He took the receiver off the hook and began spinning the rotary wheel to dial up Jack Winslow at the bar, at the Blue Tick. This is Jack. How can I help you? A voice answered with a lot of bar commotion in the background. Jack, it's Jerry Simpson. Jerry slurred with a little drool over the receiver. Ha ha, Jerry, what do you want? Jack asked. Hey, who's all down there tonight? Hurley Boyle? Ain't there, is he? Or Steve Buckwalter? Jerry asked as one of his eyes bulged open as if to help him hear the answer better. Nah, Jerry. Ain't neither one of them down here. At least not yet. Good, Jerry exclaimed. Why? You still owe Hurley money from that racing bet? Or scared Steve ain't forgot you hit him with that chair 2 weeks ago? Jack humored on the other end of the line. Heck no, I ain't worried about none of that. I'd whoop both of them at the same time if they got a problem. I I I just don't feel like seeing their ugly mugs tonight. Ruin my good time, Jerry stuttered. I'm running right out of beer here at the house. It's just too dang early. Well, come on. We got plenty down here. That is if you got the money, Jack said. Jerry didn't say any more, but hung up the phone on Jack. You're not thinking about going out tonight, are you? Why, you're already drunk. It's raining and there's killing cows on the loose. Gertie questioned sternly. The last part about killer cows caused Jerry to choke out a wheezing laugh and spray a little spit on the floor. Killer cows? Are you serious right now, woman? I tell you what, I've lived on the good green earth of gods for 51 or some odd years, and there ain't been one time a big old heifer has ever gotten the best of me. Well, maybe once. Jerry laughed hard at the last part. Everything is not a joke, Jerry. 5 or 6% of people have been killed and eaten up. Betty's niece Gladys was one of them. I think you should just stay in tonight, Gertie fussed. Bah, Jerry spat. I tell you what. If those cows come up on me, which they won't, but if I do see them, you and me is going to have so much steak and hamburger meat. Over the next year, you won't know what to do about it. Jerry nearly lost his balance, catching himself on the nearby counter. You can't even stand up, Jerry, Gertie stated. I wasn't doing nothing but leaning over here to get my jacket, Jerry snapped, while clumsily grabbing for his black jacket and then wadding it up under his arm. I'm headed out to Jack's. I'll be back before midnight if that makes you feel any better. And I'll hear no more about cows and rain from you. Go to bed. Gertie shook her head as she observed Jerry spin around and tried to stand up straight to swagger toward the door. His boots clacked like little goats against the hardwood floor, wavering a little in his gait. Jerry turned and looked back at Gertie one more time from underneath a raised, bushy set of dark eyebrows. Moo! He mocked, and then laughed his way out of the door to get into his black 1968 Chevrolet C10 half-ton truck. The rain beat down hard against Jerry's windshield, his hot breath causing it to fog up within. He wiped his sleeve against the interior of the glass to try and clear it, and reached to get a cigarette out of his denim shirt pocket with his other hand. He steered the truck momentarily with his knees and swerved hard off into the shoulder. This caused him to startle a little, and he returned his wiping hand back to the wheel. And he wheezed out a laugh. Dang near clipped that mailbox, he smirked. Boy, it's pissing out here. Cows? I'm more like to see catfish sneaking or pissing. I'm about to have to find me a spot or I'm going to make a mess of myself. Jerry squinted, and as if it gave him better focus trying to determine his bearings. I got to be getting close to old Shelley Mill's store, he commented to himself. Yeah, it's coming up soon. Once Jerry approached the location of the old closed-down store, he began to accelerate, and he pulled under the awning where the single fuel pump used to be situated. With the truck at full stop, but still running, he slid clumsily out of the driver's side door and propped himself up beside the door to urinate. Fill her up, he amused at himself. To think old Jack thinks I don't want to come down there tonight if Hurley was there. Because I owe money. I'll snatch that peckerhead up by the ponytail and throw him out the window, Jerry hiccuped and continued. And Steve Buckwalter, I hit that sissy with a chair because he sounds like a woman talking too loud. And I'll do it again if I see him. About that time, the sound of something slamming hard banged out from the other side of the truck, closest to the store. Jerry jumped and urinated on the interior of his door. Dadgummit! He scanned around through the misting rain that sprayed underneath the awning to locate the source of the sound. He saw a quick, swift motion and discovered that it had just been the sound of the store's old screen door slamming against his frame while caught in the wind. He shook his head, grinning, zipped up his pants, and hopped back into his truck. He continued down the road toward the blue tick, swerving and narrowly missing the ditches. Jerry strained to concentrate against the thumping sound of the rain on the roof of the truck. His fuzzy vision and his perceived slack of the steering wheel gripped by both hands at 10 and 2. He smacked his mouth a couple times, trying to overcome the parched and sour feeling left behind by the half case of Coors Banquets he'd previously consumed. Boy, I'm thirsty. I need a drink, he thought to himself, while stepping a little more on the accelerator. He knew that he was about to cross the river bridge at any moment now, but what he happened to overlook was the slight curve in the road that led to the bridge. Jerry's gut raised with the sensation of falling and then of descending on an incline. Bare gray limbs, along with the evergreen leafy branches of bay trees, whipped and smacked against his windshield. The truck bottom slammed hard. and grinded over a large limestone rock that was embedded on the hillside. But it did little to slow him down. Eventually, the truck slammed front bumper and hood down into a sandy bank of the Little Spring River. During the final impact, Jerry had been slammed hard against the steering wheel and had hit his head against the windshield. But due to his limpness from intoxication, he survived with little injury. He opened the truck door and dropped out disoriented onto the sandy bank. He stood in total darkness, the lights on his truck having been smashed in the wreck. "Oh, hell!" he muttered, dragging himself up onto his knees. Then lightning struck, illuminating the silhouette of the nearby bridge that he had missed in his reroute. Cold rain blasted against his back, but drunken and confused, he barely noticed. He struggled to his feet and began stumbling over the soft, sandy ground toward the bridge. The darkened image of the waves went side to side in his dim vision like a rocking ship on a stormy ocean. "Almost there. Gotta get under that bridge and get myself together," he repeated mentally to himself as the bridge grew larger in his vision as he approached it. Suddenly, the sound of the rushing river water became audible to him. He had gotten within 20 yards of the bridge when lightning struck again. This time, it illuminated a little more than just the structure of the bridge. This time, he thought he had made out of sight of rolling lumps huddled underneath the bridge. He stopped and squinted his eyes against the darkness. "Is that something moving under there?" he thought to himself. "Yeah, pretty sure something is moving under there." As Jerry stood in confusion, trying to make sense of what was under the bridge, large black masses began to roll forward toward him in the darkness, accompanied by the sound like low, thumping rolls of thunder. "My God, is that the devil?" Jerry cried out as fear upon seeing the blackened wall lumbered toward him. "Moo!" came the reply. "The cows?" he gasped, spinning around on his heels to return to the truck. "Ain't no way! Ain't no way!" "Moo! Moo!" resonated the horrific booming sound. Remus bolted forward, easily knocking Jerry into the sandy bank, and soon Jerry knew no more. The herd feasted on the soggy meal, and when they were finished, Myrtle focused her attention on the battered wreck of the truck. She let out a bellowing moo, urging the others to follow her. She placed herself behind the truck and leaned into it with her unwounded shoulder. The truck began to roll and skid across the riverbank. She was soon aided by Remus and Hamburger. The trio rolled Jerry Simpson's truck into the rushing waters of the river and watched as it disappeared beneath the rolling black waters of the Little Spring River. Jerry's remains were caught up in the rising floodwater and carried away. Myrtle turned her bearings upriver and began leading the herd further away on their retreat from Vine, Alabama. Her weary intuition drove her onward through the night, and as the rain fell, it washed away the herd's hoof prints from the sandy soil of the riverbank. And that was chapter 9. Chapter 10. Luther Pat became aware that he was lying underneath a cool sheet with his head against a soft pillow. Luther Patty, I'm sorry. Though his eyes were closed, he could tell the room was dark. Soon the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway became audible. Tick, tick, tick. He exhaled a sigh of comfort, feeling safe and warm within his home. Though the more he awakened and awareness returned, he felt as if something was out of place. A scent, a coppery, metallic aroma, mixed with damp soil, It stung his nostrils as he inhaled. Suddenly, the ticking sound of the clock in the hall morphed into that of clatter. The clatter became louder and sounded to have been backed by a heavy weight. A warm air engulfed Luther Patty and his exposed head. A warmth of exhale. Then something spoke from within the darkness with a deep, menacing voice. I'm in your house now, Chief Patty, so thus you have failed. Chief Patty tried to open his eyes but found he was paralyzed. A low, devilish chuckle reverberated nearby that rattled his insides in a manner similar to standing near a speaker during a concert. We will feed on the flesh and meat of all of your friends. The terrifying voice uttered, I think next we will eat Officer Robert's child. It would almost be a mercy. Chief Patty struggled against the paralysis, gripped by absolute fear and a mixture of growing anger. An anger that rose from the remorse and guilt he felt on account of the young Officer Robert being killed in the line of duty, and now coupled with the mockery of his dark visitor. Chief Patty's eyes popped open, and bulging from his sockets, he could see the silhouette of a large head leaning towards him. Free me from whatever holds this is, and I'll see to it that you get a full course meal of lead, Chief Luther Patty heard himself say, almost as if he were outside his own body. A faint reddish glow began to illuminate the room, revealing the face of a devilish-looking cow just inches away from Luther Patty's head. The cow laughed evilly, its lower jaw shaking full of razor-sharp teeth as it did. Luther Patty felt himself raised from his bed, and he held in a way that oriented him facing the bedroom floor. Suddenly, the wooden floor cracked and burst into pieces, sundered by flashes of hot, hellish flame, and from within the hellish scape below rose the violent gnashing and chomping. Black heads of more cows, a grotesque herd with mouths full of gore and body parts. And in the center bobbled Officer Robert's maimed head. We cannot be stopped, the voice of the devil cow taunted. Chief Patty screamed out in absolute terror, and soon found himself squinting against the beam of a blinding white light. Next, he felt himself restrained by multiple hands. Yes, hands. He could feel fingers digging into his arms and legs. He heard a familiar voice calmly speaking. Chief, calm down. We got you. You're in the hospital. You were having a bad dream. Chief Patty opened his eyes and was relieved to see Officer Sparker, Officer Upton, and Sheriff Bowers holding on to him as he lay in the hospital bed. How did I get here? Chief Patty panted out of breath, his body damp with moisture. Moisture from a combination of sweat and yet too dry dampness from being taken out in the rain and into the hospital. You took a pretty good lick from when that cow jumped on top of your cruiser, Officer Sparker answered. Officer Roberts? Chief Patty asked, knowing the answer, but hoping for a different one. Officers Upton and Sparker simply looked down at the floor and shook their heads. The herd of cows, were they stopped? Came Chief Patty's next question. Unfortunately, no. And what's worse, and I hate to admit it, we have no idea where they went after the road crossing. Officer Sparks answered. I know this is going to sound crazy, Chief Patty started, but was interrupted by Sheriff Bowers. not any crazier than cow murderers, Chief Patty continued. I think they have a leader. In the brief moment when we confronted them in the road, I could have sworn one of them was communicating to them what to do. Have you ever observed a herd of cows in a pasture? A voice near the door interjected. Everyone turned all at once to identify the speaker. Standing in the threshold of the door was a middle-aged man wearing a sweater with graying hair. He had a thick, dark mustache, large glasses, and an air of academics. Dr. Quincy Parrish, the stranger at the door introduced. Dr. Walker's friend from Mississippi State University, Sheriff Bowers said, adding familiarity. Yes, the very same. And back to my question. I asked because if you are familiar with herd patterns, you would have probably noticed that oftentimes herds seem to travel together, led by a singular member. However, in this curious matriarchal case, it seems that the herd is led by a cow that maybe has endured some sort of evolution. And that is what I am here to find out, Dr. Parrish informed, looking over the lens of his thick glasses. You can find out whatever you want after we end this herd and make sure people are safe again, Chief Patty said, wincing as he rolled up on his right hip to face the door. I completely understand the sentiment, Chief. Believe me, I also offer my serious services to aid in your endeavor. Why, I'm quite handy with a lever action rifle if I do see so about myself. It is understood to be of the utmost importance to incapacitate this murderous herd. I just simply ask that I may observe what I can, and once they are dealt with, I want to salvage their brains for research, Dr. Parrish continued. You help us find and kill them, and you can take the whole cow with you for all I care, Chief Patty replied. Glad to see you're okay, Dr. Parrish said as he turned and walked away. Just as Dr. Parrish exited, an excited man in fine clothes burst into the room. Chief, this has got to be dealt with tonight, the man exclaimed. These things chewed up my baby girl like she was nothing. The man started to break down in tears. Like she was nothing. My baby. My girl. I'm going to kill him. I swear to God, I am. Chief Patty sorrowfully looked down and then back up to Steve McNeil, Tiffany's father, and responded, She was a sweet girl, Steve. And I give you my solemn promise that we're going to hunt those monsters down and kill every last one. They killed Officer Roberts tonight and left his young wife a widow and a baby without a father. My daughter, she's gone. I can't get her back, Chief. Get your men out there now. You too, Sheriff Bowers. What the hell are you waiting on? Why are y'all just standing around with your thumbs up your fat asses? Steve McNeil snapped. Chief Patty nodded to the gathered members of law enforcement in the room, and they began to move toward the exit. You're right, Steve. All departments should be using every man available for this, myself included. During the commotion, Chief Patty's nurse, Mary O'Sullivan, pressed in past the man who were leaving, and with a look of astonished concern asked, Chief Patty, is everything okay in here? Chief Patty looked into the blue eyes of the young nurse, knowing that she was nervous, and answered, It's fine, Mr. McNeil has every right to say the things he has to say, and I can't say I wouldn't do the same in his shoes. You know, a lot of us in town have decided that we're going to hunt them down ourselves. Before someone else loses a daughter or a son, Steve McNeil said, pointing an accusatory finger at the chief as he sat upright on the hospital bed. Before Chief Patty could say another word, Steve McNeil angrily turned and swiftly walked away. Steve McDowell yelled back from somewhere in the hall, "I've said what I've had to say to your face, Chief. Now I'm going to do what needs to be done." Chief Patty closed his eyes, feeling the heavy weight of his responsibilities on his chest. He felt that he was grievously failing the people of Vine, and most of all, the family of Officer Roberts. Hey, Adam. Hey, sorry I'm out right now, but wanted to stop in to say hello. I appreciate that, Adam. All right, let's get a sip of our iced coffee. Chapter 11. Myrtle led the herd on an upriver march all through the rain soaked night. At dawn, the rain ceased, giving way to a sky of fractured clouds that held back the early rays of the sun and created a lavender backdrop above. Myrtle's eyes were damp with moisture, not from the rainy night, but from the lamentation due to the loss of Spothead. The two had been together since they were newborn calves and had frolicked together through their earliest months. Spothead was like a sister to her, and in the end, she had sacrificed herself to allow for Myrtle to escape and lead the herd away from danger. Recent events have left Myrtle with a heightened sense of wariness. Danger for the herd could be looking around every bend and hollow. Myrtle was aware that she would have to move the herd into cover as the daylight now openly revealed their presence. The men riding in their location on horseback had been deliberate. She was able to reason. They were now being hunted. Myrtle turned left up the riverbank, leading the herd through the green bay trees and other verdant shrubbery that was present in a low place between two steep hills. The walk up the slightly inclining landscape was easy, and there was no sign of human interaction within the area. After the rainy night, the air began to become warmer, causing a thick spring morning fog to blanket the woodland. The herd passed through like ghostly black shadows, like the steady, deliberate passing of death itself. The herd traveled onward away from the river for a couple of more hours, till at last, due to the moaning of some of their exhausted herd, combined with the precipitation of being in a safe, suitable location, or perception, I'm sorry, Murder halted and laid down on a soft patch of green earth. The forest around them stood tall and straight. In between the rows of trees, flowers, mushrooms, and grasses had begun to grow. On the far end of the landscape, nestled at the base of a vertical bluff, was a large rock shelf that would be able to provide an adequate space for shelter from the elements and from possible discovery. Here the herd could thrive, but one thing gnawed at Myrtle's mind. Where would they find food? The humans were so easy to run down and feast upon, but here, out there in the wild woods, the animals were used to dodging predators and were much quicker than the humans. Fleet-footed rabbits and squirrels darted through the underbrush, the rabbits to their holes and the squirrels high in the trees. The herd may be able to surprise a passing deer or an opportunistic predator, but how frequently could they be relied upon? After Myrtle rested for an hour, she rose up and walked under the rock shelf. Initially, she was startled to see signs of human presence. There were crude drawings on the stone walls and napped off pieces of flint rocks left in piles. In some places, the ground was charred black, though faded with time. If humans had been here, it appeared as if it had not been any time in recent history. Even though Myrtle's elementary reading or reasoning, man, let's try it again. Even though Myrtle's elementary reasoning skills, she was able to deduce this fact. Humans tended to be loud. They made a lot of noise if they were nearby, and all around, only the sound of the natural woods were audible. If a human were to stumble into their new home, they could possibly ambush them for a meal of opportunity. As Myrtle stood pondering, her stomach rumbled with hunger. Movement on the edge of her sight caught her attention. Beetles and slugs crawled through the pulpy rock where she had trampled over on the way in. She hoofed at the ground, revealing worms and more. Mooing and hoofing, she showed the rest of the herd how the easy meal could be revealed. The discovery of insects as food source sustained the herd lightly at first, but as the next 3 days dragged on, it was quickly understood that the food source would not suffice. The herd began to become lethargic, restless, and thin. Saliva dripped from their eager, hungry mouths as they bloodlusted for the taste of meat. Their hidden paradise was unraveling. On the 5th morning, Remus separated from the herd and began to trample angrily over the green grasses and flowers. He snorted and stamped all through the surrounding woodland. Myrtle witnessed this and, with a solution in mind, led the remaining members of the herd out amongst the budding greenery. In the days since the rainfall, the air had become increasingly warmer, and the presence of pollen had sprinkled the landscape in a powdery yellow. Bees buzzed and swarmed all about, and the sun shone healthily down through the tree branches. The world was turning greener by the day. Myrtle, through desperation, yielded her desire for meat and began to eat vegetation once again. Once she began, the herd followed along, coming full circle back to their natural ways. The hold that meat had held over them was now slowly being broken. As the fresh green vegetation entered their starving bodies, the herd immediately began to feel refreshed and renewed. Their eyes became clearer. As if great scales had fallen away from them. Their stomachs settled and the restlessness relaxed from their nerves. Now they truly were in paradise. The herd reverted to their designed nature among the bountiful forest. But back in Vine, people lived each day in fear. Old ladies checked the mailbox while escorted by their armed husbands in broad daylight. Children were kept home from school behind barricaded doors, unable to congregate together to play outside. All the downtown shops closed up, other than essentials, like the grocery store and service station. And of the places that kept business running, those on site were armed and working in pairs. No one went anywhere alone, including law enforcement. Chief Patty and his officers, along with Sheriff Bowers and his deputies, patrolled every road in the surrounding area. They were searching for Myrtle and her herd. The ABI had even loaned out a helicopter and pilot to make passes over the woods and rural places. Steve McNeil also stayed true to his word and remained involved. Every evening at 3 p.m., McNeil and a posse of angry citizens met at the Blue Tech and loaded up in pickup trucks armed to the teeth. They formed their own patrols. Even Mayor Wade Cadwell tagged along with the force of citizens, and he did so for one big reason in particular. He was running for his fourth consecutive term in office and had decided to distance himself from the police force. Mayor Cadwell had publicly chastised Chief Patty over what he had called the prolonged response to ending the madness. For the mayor, it was all about politics and his appearance, because in truth, he sincerely respected Chief Patty. Chief Patty had been successfully running Vine's police department during and before any of the mayor's terms, and for that, Mayor Cadwell had always been grateful. The problem was that now, due to the numerous deaths and the funerals that followed, the police department wasn't viewed in the best light, especially since the herd of cows still remained a threat. The citizens of Vine, for the most part, couldn't find any reason, in fact, that a herd of cows had been left on the loose and not found and dealt with by now. As the week since the herd's last sighting drug on, tensions remained tight as a bowstring. Release from the terror was nowhere to be found, as all attempts to track down the subdue the herd provided to be fruitless. The fact that the citizens were failing along with law enforcement brought Chief Patty and the others a little grace in the eyes of the public. Chapter 12. It was the first week of April when Remus the bull, now full of health and vigor, took an attractive notice of his herd mate, Hamburger. His body teemed with excitement as he began to dash and pursue the female. Hamburger evaded his advances with helpful interference from Myrtle. Remus huffed and stomped the soft woodland soil, undeterred. Eventually, he battered past Myrtle and continued after Hamburger, who seemed to now be making a game of it. This aggravated Myrtle. Though she finally yielded to letting nature take its course, the herd could multiply and prosper here amongst this ancient woodland and would not want ever again. Hamburger plodded away from the flatland near the bluffs and disappeared over the crest of a rolling ridge. Remus excitedly charged after her, leveling the underbrush as he departed. The two played at their dance and began covering a lot of distance. Remus would catch up to her and do what bulls do, but then Hamburger would slip away from him and continue leading him in a pursuit. The forest around them teemed with the health of springtime. Eventually, Remus and Hamburger found themselves in a low-lying holler and became startled by the discovery of something alien to them. The sight of shiny copper tanks piping into wooden cask barrels. It was a moonshine still. Curiously, Remus approached the shiny scene that reflected brightly in the beams of the noon sun. He inhaled deeply, drawn by the scent of the fermented mash. Hamburger cautiously followed, her mouth watering from hunger. Remus nudged one of the containers, hearing a sloshing sound. Feeling more comfortable after the initial probing bump, he pushed against the still harder, toppling the container and spilling the mash onto the ground. He sniffed at the spilled contents before taking a couple of bites of the spent mash solids. His initial response was of repulsion, but after a few more bites, he began to want more. Hamburger followed suit, and soon they consumed the spent grains, searching for more. Remus smashed through one of the nearby wooden barrels and spilling a pungent, clear liquid that made a puddle on the ground. Remus and Hamburger further indulged, lapping up the spilled liquid. At first, Remus and Hamburger hesitantly drank the liquid, feeling it burn within their throat and stomachs. But in between the pauses, they found that they craved more of the clear, warm liquid. Remus felt his head swimming as the ground swayed and obscured below his hooves. Hamburger took a step back and fell down, rolling over onto her side. Once she clumsily regained her footing, she began to stumble further away into the woods. Remus, his natural feelings still surged within him, continued in pursuit of his current mate, Hamburger. That piece of crap, Jerry Simpson, still owes me money. Won't be getting that now, Hurley Boyle complained as the Ford truck lurched along the muddy ruts of the old sawmill road. He got killed by those cows, his passenger Paul Acker remarked from within the stale, stuffy cab of the truck. Yeah, they found what was left of his chewed up body, hung up on driftwood logs after the flooding rain we had. It ain't really much of a loss, though, Hurley continued while shifting the truck up into second gear with a grind. He was funny, though. Paul smiled, showing his chewing tobacco-stained teeth. He thought you were too, Hurley, but not in the ha-ha kind of way. Paul wheezed, laughing at his comment, and began to cough, causing spittle to spray out into a shaggy, unkempt black beard. Just because a man has a ponytail don't mean he's funny, Hurley replied with slight annoyance. That bum would have had known the first thing about being a real man. Hell, Paul, I was running them jungles in Vietnam right out of high school, fighting for my life day and night. Hurley paused after the Vietnam statement. His mind wandered and replayed graphic scenes that caused him to slowly close his eyes for a second. Sour old loser probably gave them cows diarrhea. Wasn't even a satisfying meal, I bet. Paul jested. Yeah, I don't want to talk about him no more. He still owe me for a jar of moonshine, and that's all right. We're about to get some more, Hurley said, slightly pressing down on the truck's accelerator. The back tires spun in the wet ruts, slinging mud against the body of the truck as Hurley maneuvered the truck so that they didn't bog down and get stuck. I'm feeling pretty good about this batch, Paul commented, with an excited gleam in his eye. Hurley rolled down his window, and the truck now easily traversed the old road. Reach in that glove compartment and get one of my cigarettes for me. You get one too if you want. Nah, I'm trying to quit those. Chewing tobacco only now, Paul responded while digging around in the cluttered dash. Shoot, why quit now? You're an old man. Hurley smoked, holding his right hand out to accept the discovered cigarettes from Paul. Probably well preserved from smoke on the inside. Well, you know what? Paul started to say, but stopped because he was startled. Look up, Hurley. What's that stumbling around? It's a doggone bull mounted on a cow, Hurley exclaimed. You think that's a killer one? Paul asked while gazing straight ahead. It's gotta be. They're looking for him and couldn't find him. We gotta get out. I gotta get my rifle behind the seat, Hurley said, pressing the brake and clutch pedal. A high-pitched sequel sang out in the truck, slid to a stop. I'm going to leave that truck running just in case we need to get out of here fast, Hurley said. As he slowly opened the door, the two men exited the truck carefully, but immediately noticed that the two clumsy cows ahead of them seemed not to notice their presence. Why are they moving like that? They look drunk, Paul said, and slightly above a whisper. The thought hit Hurley that maybe the cow and bull had gotten into the contents of their still. He slid the .270 Winchester out from behind the seat and chambered around. They're mad. That's why they've been killing people. Hurley adjusted his drab jacket so that he could more freely maneuver the rifle. He then raised the rifle, propped his elbow on the truck hood for better stability, and sighted the scope. The crosshairs were on Remus's head. Remus was in motion, so Hurley had to try his best to hold the target. "Shoot him, Hurley!" Paul impatiently said. "Waiting on him to quit moving so much. Gotta make it count. They're killers, and I don't need both of them coming at us. You just be ready to jump back in that truck if something don't go right," Hurley responded, never taking his eyes off the scope. Hurley flipped the safety off and set his fingers on the trigger to squeeze. Remus and Hamburger were oblivious to the imminent threat. The crosshairs weaved over Remus's bobbing head as Hurley inhaled and exhaled. In the matter of a second, Hurley held his breath and squeezed down on the trigger. Remus was standing steady. The shot exploded with a thunderous boom that rippled through the serenity of the woodland, shattering the calm. Remus fell to the ground, dead. Hamburger, slowly unaware, stood still. Hurley swung the rifle to quickly make Hamburger the next target and pulled the trigger. The second shot struck home in Hamburger's shoulder. Once she was aware that she was in danger, she turned to run away, but found that one of her legs failed to cooperate. She rolled forward and landed on her side. As she struggled to regain her footing, Hurley shot again, and for the last time. "Get the axe out of the bed of the truck," Hurley instructed Paul. The report of the rifle echoed off the walls of the bluff above Myrtle and the rest of the herd, and she intuitively knew that something was wrong. Man was near, and time of the peaceful holler was possibly nearing its end. Myrtle mooed, getting the attention of the remaining herd, and led them deep under the shelter of the bluff. She would keep them huddled there for the time being, until either Remus and Hamburger returned, or she felt that danger was eventually enough for them to retreat further away. And I think we're going to stop tonight there. If you want to find out for yourself, you'll have to buy the book. But, excuse me. And that's how it ends, at least for us. And that is how it ends, at least for us, it does tonight. Vine, Alabama, a place that once felt quiet and ordinary, safe, but now we know better, because whatever was happening there was never really contained. It didn't stop, it didn't disappear, it fed. The cattle tasted blood. And once something learns what it is to hunt, it doesn't forget. So, the real question is, was Vine just the beginning? You will definitely have to buy the book to find out for yourself. The link is in the description if you're interested. If you enjoyed tonight's journey into something a little darker, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone who loves a good horror story. Because here, we just don't tell stories, we step into them. And as always, thank you all for watching. Good night and sweet dreams. Bye-bye, guys. Have a good night.